Well, cut my legs off and call me shorty. Are you telling me that Rey Palpatine wasn't planned? Ah, yes, the floor is indeed made out of floor. But it's fine, everyone, because Jar Jar Abrams said that I've learned my lesson. Whatever the that means, yeah, you've learned your lesson alright, but at the expense of George Lucas's hard work and legacy. Oh, Jar Jar Abrams, the king of hacks. Off with your head. May JJ take a long walk off a short cliff, head first into a Vietnamese spike pit, skin that smoke wagon and see what happens. I'll be your Huckleberry, but the truth always comes out when they're not on the payroll anymore. Because Jar Jar Abrams is not a clown, he's the entire circus. He's a hack along with the other round-headed guy. So what you're telling me, Bob Iger, is that a clown college degree will give me a multi-million-dollar contract at Disney. Good to know. Now, J.J. Abrams admits that the Star Wars sequel trilogy needed a plan. This admission alone should justify a complete decanonization of the pile known as the sequels. And yet here we are, trying to make this garbage work. It was made for SJWs, and ironically, they don't even care about these movies either. Of course not. They're too busy crying on Twitter about problems caused by, wait for it, yeah, you guessed it, themselves, while chugging themselves to death on strawberry milkshakes. Look, isn't it funny how the woke fan base never show up to watch the woke movies? It comes down to two choices, really. Either it's a crappy fan base that doesn't show up to support the movies they like, or the most obvious or apropos reason is that there is no woke fan base, and my guess is the latter. Anyway, let's get back to this article. Jar Jar Abrams was asked by Collider, do you feel like the trilogy would have benefited from planning a strict free movie story from the beginning? This is a question that you ask a 10-year-old. Anyway, Jar Jar responded with a rambling answer before eventually admitting that the Star Wars trilogy needed a plan. What I've learned as a lesson a few times now, it's something especially in this pandemic year, working with writers, the lesson is you have to plan things the best you can and always need to be able to respond to the unexpected, and the unexpected can come in all sorts of forms. I do think there's nothing more important than knowing where you are going. Oh wow, that is quite the reflection, Jar Jar. You have the nerve to say if you have no plan, you don't know what you're setting up. How ironic coming from Mr. Mystery Box. There are teenagers with acne on their face making fan fiction in their basement that have spent more time planning their plot than Jar Jar. Imagine Alfred Hitchcock starting a movie with no plan for the script, no plan for the production, set, music, etc. That would never happen in a million years, but the thing is, there was a plan for the sequel trilogy, alright? And that plan was to make money. The blueprint is as follows. Make a pile of shit and then alter the next pile of shit based on how much money the last pile of shit made. You heard it here first. That was the sequel trilogy plan, but didn't they have hundreds of pages of notes from George Lucas himself that they bragged about instantly throwing out? I mean, George gave them a script for the sequels. He gave them a golden egg on a silver platter. And Disney said nah and refused it in exchange for a rock hard turd on a glass plate. I mean, if only there was countless books and other source material that could have given them a direction. And that is why the sequels need to be decanonized and thrown into Crazy Kennedy's rectum. Also, I think it's time we officially change J.J. Abrams' name to Jar Jar, because he most certainly deserves it. This director is in the wrong business. I can't believe I used to think that J.J. Abrams was actually good at his job. I mean, how wrong was I? God, I miss the days of Fringe. But look, Jar Jar Abrams is notorious for having strong starts and not knowing how to finish. And I know there's a joke in there somewhere, but listen to me. Both Alias and Lost both started off strong with many interesting plot points, and it also had very interesting twists thrown in there too, but it ended on a whimper. Star Trek and Star Wars ended the exact same way. Why is anybody surprised? If this is surprising to you, then you weren't paying attention, or you were intentionally ignoring the very obvious. Just imagine for a second, you are a Disney shareholder. You spend millions of dollars in shares, and the people responsible for your money admit that they don't care enough to actually plan anything. I have no idea how Bob Iger doesn't fire every executive that works over there. It's so insane to me that Disney would pay that much money for a franchise and then not have an overarching story to guide the plot. But this is what happens when they're too big to fail. They don't respect the story, the heritage, the lore, the character arcs. They were showered with money for absolutely no reason. And before I go, there was another part of the interview that really pissed me off. In the midst of spitting his verbal diarrhea, Jar Jar Abrams said, and I quote, providing a satisfying conclusion to Han Solo's arc. Excuse me? Is that a joke? He got stabbed and fell into a hole. The only person that was satisfied was Harrison Ford because he no longer had to deal with you weirdos anymore. Anyway, look, when this information started coming out about the sequels being an unplanned mess, they should have admitted and apologized and moved forward with good content. But no, instead, they attacked the fans and doubled down on the stupidity. So in effect, they've done so much more damage to Star Wars. Hollywood needs a wake-up call, my goodness, and on that bombshell. Mannix fade out. It's been a while since I said that.